Welcome to Grapes and Debates, a podcast where we'll uncork some incredible wine and debate varietals of issues within the restaurant industry, one glass at a time. And now, your hosts and owners of SoNapa Grille, Adam Barringer, Chris Botting, and Joe Bates.
Episode 50 of Grapes and Debates.
That's a big one, but it's even bigger today. Yeah,
it's even bigger today. We've got a special guest. This is really actually a pretty awesome day.
Agreed.
So Adam Barringer, founder of SoNapa Grille, here with my business partner, Joe Bates. Joe, who do we have here today?
Well, we've got Todd Graff, the winemaker, general manager, and correct me if I'm wrong, of Frank Family Vineyards.
Nothing wrong so far.
Yeah, great. Well, welcome. Welcome to Grapes and Debates.
Yeah.
Great. No, great to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you.
So I will tell you that we had this customer, his name is Mac McClellan, and for years he was saying, Adam, I'm telling you, Frank Family Wines, you got to put them on the menu. And for whatever reason, we have always kind of danced around it.
Okay.
We never really committed to putting Frank Family on the menu. And then just recently, as part of our wine club, we brought in a bunch of Frank Family wine. I believe we did the Pinot Noir, the Chardonnay, and the Cab. Mm-hmm. What an overwhelming response to all of our members.
Super well received.
And then we've been running, since then, these wines on our feature board.
That's fun. For every person like Mac, everybody thinks they discovered Frank Family.
Right.
And there are ambassadors,
Yes.
They're evangelistic about this brand, and it's fantastic. I remember the first time I had it, and then they tell 10 friends, and then
Right.
and then this snowball just starts rolling down a hill.
Yeah.
And it's super fun, and we definitely have fans of a brand, and it's great.
Well, Todd, I know that Joe pulled up your bio.
Got a little bit of background.
And
sure.
I gotta say,
Don't you hope you don't
No.
have all the dirt? Yeah.
before we get into that, let's put wine in our glass.
That's what we do first.
That's really
You guys were scaring me for a
That's
second.
what we
know.
do
Yeah,
first.
so let me just give it a quick. Great. So we're pouring the 23 Carnero Chardonnay, Frank Family.
Ooh.
Can't wait.
Joe, I'm gonna pour it for you.
Yeah, please. Fantastic.
Normally we film in the afternoon, but I think it's only fair to let people know that it is.
How hard you're working.
Yeah.
It's
10 to 10.
Yeah.
Well, they say that your palate is most responsive early in the morning.
Right after coffee.
I didn't have it. I didn't
between
have it.
toothpaste.
I will. Right. After hotel coffee and toothpaste.
Great. So what we're drinking is the 23 Carnero Chard. So if you ask 100 people, 50% say that we're best known for our Chardonnay.
Okay.
The other half say we're best known for Cabernet. So this is the wine, though, we do make the most of. We own 80 acres down in Carneros. So for your listeners, the Napa Valley is about 30 miles long. Carneros is the southern end, most coolest end, close to San Pablo Bay, which goes into San Francisco Bay. So on a good clear day from the knolls in the vineyard, you could see the skyline of the city. And we're right there at the bottom of the valley. And then we buy, so we have 80 acres there, and then we buy from growers that anybody who's a fan of California wines, especially Northern California, would know these. They're household names in our industry. Andy Beckstoffer, we're the largest purchaser of his Carneros fruit.
Really?
So Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. The San Giacomo family, multi-generation, salt of the earth farmers. We buy a lot of fruit from them. Then we own it. Then we have historical Winery Lake vineyard that we get fruit from. So we grow our own and buy a lot also.
Okay.
So and it's a good blend, yeah.
Those relationships with winemakers and vineyards and growers are just, I've heard over the years how special those are, and long-term generational relationships sometimes.
That it's so important. I can't emphasize how important those are, and especially as times are tough. Every 10 years we go through a cycle of something. And when you have those relationships, the tough times are a little easier.
Yeah.
They know you're gonna support them, and vice versa. And I'm very proud. One of the proudest things is that I think I'm on the top of their Rolodex. Hey, I've got this killer block. It's coming into production. Hey,
They'll call you.
I'm calling you first. make a decision. If not, I'll go someplace else. So really fun that way. And so we get to get some nice blocks and fruit and heck, it's nice to hit a few golf balls with those guys too.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, this is drinking great right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what tell us what we have. I mean, I'm getting creamy, malolactic, nice. This is my kind of a Chardonnay.
Great. And so with Frank family, we're always striving for a lot of balance. I always like to say we're jam packed with balance. Which, so Carneros fruit, natural acidity. This is all barrel fermented. We're a French oak house. And I like to see the barrels here in the restaurant. Right. This blend is made up of a third new every vintage, a third once used, and a third twice used. So we rotate the barrels through. And my perfect barrel, in my opinion, when I'm just tasting in the cellar, is like a once used barrel. It's like that has that balance again. So this is my interpretation of you have to buy a new barrel to get a used barrel. Sure. So So 1/3 new, 1/3 once used, 1/3 twice used, all French oak, 100% barrel fermented, and then it's partial mallow. So malolactic is that creaminess, and then we let that go for a long time to kind of reduce the overt butteriness. We want the creaminess and the roundness.
You get that.
So
Yeah, but it's not a cream bomb.
Right.
it's not. So it's partial. So vineyard by vineyard. So if a vineyard has natural high acidity, and I'll put it through mallow to kind of round it out. Just the simple way for your listeners, malic acid is the simple acid of apple. When you bite into a green apple, it's kind of hard. Lactic is the acid of cream products, dairy products, creamier. So we try to get that a little softer. But if a vineyard is naturally low in acid, I don't want to make it flabby.
Right.
So I'll prevent it on those vineyards, and then we blend after.
Okay.
So it's a combination of all that, and it's a nice blend, all Carneros, all the rolling hills, and also Carneros is the only appellation that crosses county lines.
So it is
it's that Sonoma and Napa.
Right.
So
Correct.
it makes everybody. And I grew up in Sonoma County. I've only worked my adult life in Napa County, so I'm one of the few that get the rivalry and make it fun. Okay. So it's fun there.
Well, this
Well,
is fantastic.
speaking of where you grew up, and Joe showing me your bio, you are a badass. So why don't you tell us about really just your career, how you got into this, and I mean, you've worked all over the globe.
What made you take that introductory wine
Yeah.
course at Santa
No,
Rosa?
well, I like to say, I didn't know the heck I was going to do. You're 18, I was going to be the next
Did any of us?
I was going to be the next shortstop for the Giants.
Yeah.
Until I realized that I get to college and everybody was better than I was.
Yeah.
We joked that major injury is called a bruised ego, and you can't and you can't fix those. So I had to take some classes, and I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I was lucky to grow up in a really beautiful part of the state, and I didn't mind wanting to call that home for a long time.
Right.
And I knew I wanted to work outdoors some days, but I didn't want to work outdoor all day. And I wanted to work indoors some days, but I didn't want to work indoors all day. So, and I wanted to create something, and I wanted to travel. And you just start asking yourself, could you take an introductory class? And the light bulb went on immediately. And I go, I could do this for a living. And I'm, again, very fortunate. An hour and a half away is UC Davis, so the most known English-speaking winemaking school.
Sure.
And I went there, and probably shouldn't have. They probably shouldn't have allowed me to get in there, but I did. Got out, graduated, and then the first job offer was from Joseph Phelps.
Wow.
And then the door opens up, and
That's some pedigree.
yeah, life's pretty good. And worked there until I made enough money to buy a plane ticket and had some connections, and took off and followed the sun, working harvest around the globe.
Okay.
Australia. Spent all that money there, and there wasn't a lot, but I didn't need much at the time. And then can't spend enough money, so we spent a couple months in Asia waiting for the sun to get into Europe, and then into Germany, and then had a harvest job lined up in France, in Bordeaux, on Figeac, and then came home broke and asked my mom for my room back and borrow a car to interview.
There you go.
Yeah,
That's
so
awesome.
It was great. No, and it's such a small, global wine community.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I still can call those people and stay at
Yeah.
their houses, and their kids have worked for me and stayed in my house.
Right.
So it's great. Wouldn't have changed it for the world. And then I I was fortunate again. Stag's Leap hired me as their assistant winemaker.
What's Stag's Leap known for?
It was Carl Domaini's at the time, so it's owned by Treasury now.
Okay.
Which is kind of funny, full circle
Sure.
for me. But it was privately owned at the time. Had a great time, but then got wanderlust again. And Stramsburg was offering a position to work in California plus start a winery in Portugal.
Wow.
So for the next 5 years, I was on a plane every 2 months doing the flying winemaker gig.
Still using those points?
Yeah. No, I have kids.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Hey, Dad,
Yeah.
can I get 10,000
yeah,
points?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Hey, if you want me to visit. Anyway, so that was fantastic. And it was in the 90s. So Portugal was pretty rustic at the time and beautiful. It wasn't, I joked that you get to choose what century you want to live in Portugal. Unfortunately, up in the Douro, they chose the 18th still.
Okay. Right.
And so, I mean, it wasn't unusual to see donkeys and oxen bringing in grapes. And things were rustic, but exciting. It was fun. So it added to my travel and did that for a while until it was time to settle down. And then instead of working for the Californians in Portugal, I took a job working for the Spanish in California. Did that for a while, all sparkling wine.
Okay.
And then it was time to, if you're going to be in Napa, you better make Cabernet.
Right.
Sure.
So then I ended up Frank family over 22
Yeah,
years.
so how'd you hook up with these guys?
Yeah,
Did
yeah.
they call you? Did
Yeah,
you
no,
call?
we were just, same ideas.
Yeah.
Like, hey, what's out there? I think I want to make some still wine, do that. And what was great about Frank family, we do some sparkling. So I got to take my, at the time, expertise
From Stramsburg.
and help that program. So it was great. So now I get to do a little bit of everything.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah, and the Franks have been great.
Well, as we move on, let's
Can we
move on down
sure.
that wine
Go
line?
ahead.
Yeah. So now we're going to be pouring the 22. So we left the 23 vintage of the Chardonnay, and we're going to move into the 22 Pinot, which is a sibling of the Chardonnay. So all those growers, Frank family, San Giacomo, Beckstoffer, Winery Lake, same vineyard growers in this wine. Again, same area, Carneros, southern end, the coolest part. Burgundian varieties like the cool weather. Carneros, as you'll see, if you're in St. Helena, Calistoga, Up Valley in the afternoons on the summer or spring through fall, you're in shorts and a T-shirt pretty much all day.
Right.
In Carneros, around 3 o'clock, the sweaters are coming out, and things like that. The wind's picking up.
And that's that bay influence
Yeah,
coming
exactly. And the wind's coming in from the ocean. There's just a clear path coming through. So
That's a beautiful Pinot Noir.
yeah, a lighter body styled wine.
I love, as an everyday red drinker, I'm an everyday white drinker, but for an everyday drinker, I love Pinot Noir. And this is a great example.
Yeah, one of the big. What's your favorite one, right? And I go, favorite. What's your favorite child? But
I have one.
yeah, it depends what day, right? Yeah, it depends what day. And then, and I always go, well, when I come home, there's a bottle of Chardonnay Pinot open, and I haven't even started thinking yet. I just need to have a glass.
Right.
And then what am I having for dinner? Then I'll go for what am I having to drink. But these are always open.
Oh, that is fantastic, man. Great fruit up front, bright.
And it's such a great wine, especially in the restaurant business. The couple in here, I'm having fish and I'm having chicken.
Easy.
One wine.
Yep.
Right, exactly. No, I love that. So, talk a little bit about an acquisition that you made and what makes this special. You Wood Ranch Vineyard in Rutherford in 2012, and what makes that? We know kind of Rutherford is special, but what makes this one vineyard special? How'd you guys get your hands on it?
Sure. Well, so Lori Wood, great character, early character in the Napa Valley. I think it was in their family. I'm going to say 100 years, but a long time, generations for sure. And he was a farmer. I mean, he had kiwis on the property, chamoy. He grew fruit.
Right.
And grapes just happened to be in that cycle. So he was one of the early grape growers in the valley, and he had Rutherford land. So it had history, and he was a well witcher.
Okay.
So and a super high success rates. This little old guy now. And
Is that with the sticks?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You go find
And
water?
And he, evidently, it sends an electrical feeling through your system.
Okay.
And you can either do rods or sticks, and he'd feel it. And his success rate was super high. So he was well known. call in Lori to find the well. And he did it. So anyway, he had this great history. And he was a partner in Freemark Abbey in the early days as a grower. Anyway, he passed. Family wanted to sell the property and move on. They didn't want to continue the tradition. And so we got in a little bidding war, and the Franks bought it, which was great. And it's in the heart of Rutherford. And we already own, the Franks live on a property called Winston Hill, which is on the east side of Rutherford on the Silverado Trail. So if you guys know where Mum Champagne House
Sure,
is,
yep.
right across the road going up the hill
Okay.
is Winston Hill. Benjamin Ranch, which we call it now, the Old Wood Ranch, is on the other side of Mum. So we kind of joke it's a 9-iron away, but it's like a par 18 or something. Yeah. It
Not
looks
my
like it's
9-iron,
it looks like it's close, but it's you
That's
know,
for
it's
all
just a
you
drive.
TPC people.
Yeah.
Being here in Jack's Beach.
No, big golf community here.
Yeah, I know.
TPC
I'm
Sawgrass
already,
right up the street.
I'm already regretting not coming down here to play.
Yeah.
So Benjamin's great, and it was planted, as most in the 80s. A little bit of everything. There was Chard, there was Petit Syrah, Cabernet Franc, Petit Verdot, some Cab Franc, a little bit of everything. And when we bought it, we knew it needed a redevelopment. So what we've done is come in, change row directions. Planted predominantly Bordeaux varieties and heavily Cabernet Sauvignon, but I put some Merlot. My philosophy is always plant what will grow best.
Sure.
And so in some of the soils, we thought Petit Verdot would do better, Merlot, and then the balance is Cabernet Sauvignon.
Okay.
So great ranch, and that's a foundation for some of our reserve wines that we're going to taste
Okay.
today, and our Napa Cab. So that Benjamin Ranch is a foundation for
Okay.
both these wines.
Well, since we've talked about cab and the plantings at the ranch, let's go ahead
Shall
and get
we?
into this.
Great.
Yeah, Joe. I'm gonna
So
Start
again,
with me, thanks.
22 vintage, quintessential Napa Cab. Again, multi-vineyard blend. Foundation is the Benjamin Ranch we just talked about in Rutherford. Buy from some neighbors there, the quarries. Round Pond sells some of fruit to us.
Okay.
Ghost Block?
Nope.
Melissa family? No?
Nope, no.
Okay.
Not from them, from the McDonald family.
Okay.
And so, and then we own a ranch up above, east of Atlas Peak, high elevation.
Sure.
So that's S&J, named after grandkids as well, Stella and Jeremy. So that's another chunk in this. A little splash of Merlot and a little splash of Petit Verdot.
Since you mentioned Rutherford, for our listeners, there's something that's known as Rutherford dust.
Yes.
Why don't you explain
Yeah,
what
yeah,
that
no, that's
is?
good. I think I probably explained it with it. Everybody explains
Sometimes
it a little
I thought it was
different.
my breath.
Well, and
that
I was
I'm-
going to get
Yeah.
I was going to get that question because I still don't know.
I got to tell you, I think it's kind of.
I'm just like,
Yeah, it's a little bit of that. You know, Andrei Chelichev, one of the early great famous
Sure.
winemakers to California. You know, he coined the Rutherford dust. I take it as a kind of a chocolate and a chalkiness,
Okay.
aromatics, and a smoothness. That's
Right.
how I take it. I think if you ask 10 people, they'll give you 10 answers. But this blend is made up of a good chunk of Rutherford, and what's great about Rutherford, it's in the heart of the valley, and arguably some of the best Cabernet ground in Napa Valley for sure,
And the world.
Yes, and we can argue that year in and year out in the world. So
Sure.
very fortunate to have that, have those vineyards right there.
This is
it's great.
just really good.
And it's not I don't like super tannic wines. It's not a tannin bomb. It's just, you talked about balance, and that's where you're
Yes.
trying to get the fruit and the tannins, and it's ready to drink right now, but this could sit down for a while
Yeah,
as well.
I have no issue with the Cabernets going 10 to 15 years for this one, and then when we get to the reserve, you'll see that's a 20-year.
Do you have any cabs in your house that have gone 10 to 15 years?
It's lucky if it goes 10 to 15 minutes.
I know. Well, this is drinking fantastic. You talked about the blend and the foundation. Like, how long does it take to get the final blend? How many people on your team? And
Yes.
Who puts I assume you put the final
Yeah,
stamp
we
on it.
we
but-
love to say it's not a democracy. Everybody gets a vote, but not all votes are equal. I do have a great staff. There's about 4 of us intimate that are involved in this, but it's It's relatively simple, no different than any business. If you chip away a little bit every day, by the time you have to make a decision, it's almost done for you.
Right.
So we're tasting these wines regularly, looking at it, and we keep the individual vineyard lots separate. Sometimes we'll put a composite blend together or not, but we're evaluating them at least monthly, looking at them really hard, and you can kind of see the cream, the rising of the crop, or the ones that might need a little influence. I kind of refer in another cliche as like teaching. It's the A students are pretty simple. They sit in the front row, they're quiet, they do their homework.
They take their notes.
It's good. It's the guy in the back row that you got to come on, let's get you into the middle maybe. Let's get you in the middle here. Focus on this a little, and let's get some excitement in you so you'll study a little bit better. So when people say, what's your best wine, I probably have an answer, but if you ask me what am I most proud of, it's going to be this tier where I'm taking multiple vineyards and encourage them to make these delicious, balanced wines.
And it's drinking fantastic.
This really is.
And this was part of the wine club, one of the wines.
Tell us while we're drinking a little bit about the Frank family.
Sure. Thank you for
'cause
So
I don't
founded,
know much about them.
No, that's great. Thanks for the reminder. Rich Frank, great guy. He was the ex-president of Disney Studios. So he came from an entertainment career, born in New York, work, ended up in Los Angeles to make it quicker. Was running Paramount Studios. So if you look at Cheers, Mork and Mindy, Happy Days, everything from my childhood on television, he had his fingerprint on.
Okay.
He's probably one of the best known guys behind the screen. And then when Michael Eisner left Paramount to run Disney, he took Rich with him. And so it was Eisner and Frank and Katzenberg and Wells in the top office, and Rich was doing studios. So Lion King to Little Mermaid, all those business. So another generation.
Yeah.
And so he had a fantastic entertainment career, and he dabbled in that for quite a bit after he retired from Disney. But he bought a house in Napa, and it just on this beautiful hill, it's a great house, and had these vines. And it's like, okay, what am I going to do with these? And just again, he just, hey, let's start something. Let's make some wine for friends. And then all of a sudden, okay, let's make a little more.
Because clearly a creative mindset from his background.
Yes, for sure, and he had a lot of energy. A lot of energy. And then he partnered with a gentleman, Kerner Rombauer. Everybody knows the Rombauer brand. And they bought the current facility we're at right now. And on the label, you'll see a 1890s stone building, and it had a production facility on it. And Kerner needed it as he was expanding Rombauer. And so as Rombauer was growing, Frank family was just kind of puttering along a little bit. And we had an old shed there, and selling all our wine out of a shed under one of these 100-year-old elm trees. There wasn't a level line in that shed, and then Rich was ready. He got excited about it, and then he reinvested in it. We turned the old farmhouse into a tasting room, bought additional vineyards, started getting serious, and we stayed in that shed for a while, but the wine left the shed and went down to L.A., San Francisco. Then we go, let's go to Vegas. Okay, now let's go to Arizona. And then 25 years later, we're an overnight success story, and we're in all 50 states. And I was this weekend up in Canada trying to introduce the wines there. So
hello, tariffs.
Yeah. So anyway, so it's been nothing but fun.
Yeah.
Good.
And great people, and his wife Leslie, broadcast journalist. She was a news reporter down in Los Angeles when they met, and very involved. So it's great. A lot of energy, and they're just great social people.
Awesome. All right, we have one more wine.
What's next on the list?
Great. So now we're going to jump up a slot.
Okay.
This is our Rutherford Reserve. So we talked about Rutherford. So now we're changing vintage too. So we're going to 21 vintage.
Oh, wow, look at that color.
So it's been in the bottle a year longer than the previous wine, and it's 100% Rutherford. The 21 vintage was a drought year, so the crop was small. The berries were tiny, clusters were tiny, so the concentration was there. And then this comes from our Winston Hill vineyard, which is where the Franks live. Our best vineyard is Winston Hill. Okay. Comes from there. Benjamin, that we talked about, the acquisition in 2012 that's been redeveloped. and then Beckstoffer George III. So it's all Rutherford.
Damn, that's good.
A little bit of Petit
sturdy
Verdot.
bottle.
Yeah, a little bit of Petit
I get
Verdot, but
that.
it's Cabernet centric. It's about 95 or plus percent or more. Don't remember that exact vintage, but a little bit of Petit Verdot, super concentrated. This gets a little more new oak. This is 50% new oak, and again, French oak.
Okay. I feel my teeth getting red just drinking this.
But great. So we make wine. So we have the Napa tier where we bring multiple vineyards into the blend. Now we're kind of funneling in. Now we're only in Rutherford, and then at the winery, when you guys come out and visit, you'll see Winston Hill only, so a vineyard designate.
Wow.
And then you'll see a block only called Patriarch.
Okay.
So we'll just get really narrow, but these are the wines we represent in the whole.
Well, we're coming out.
Yeah, that's great.
So we're coming to see
May
you.
12th.
Yeah, we're coming to see you.
May
I
12th.
can't wait.
No, that's great. The weather should be fantastic.
You know, this is definitely a little more grippy
Yeah.
than that first Cabernet.
You love that
but it's,
word.
I do.
You-
I do.
Grippy.
I don't have a lot of describers. Descriptives? Okay.
We know what you mean.
You know what I mean. But it's got the fruit on the front to balance that grippiness. This could definitely drink in a decade from now.
No,
or
and this
more.
one, to me, this goes, put a tomahawk chop out there.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And just split
Right.
that thing 3 ways and start
Absolutely.
eating and drinking.
Split 3 ways. You see me? Get off my tomahawk, man. This is fantastic.
There's another T-shirt, right?
I know. Get off my tomahawk. So, listen, a lot of people talk about sustainability
Yep.
and gosh, how it's changed and grown and over the last 3 decades plus. But you've got to be proud of the Napa Green certification.
Yeah.
Talk a little about sustainability at Frank Family Vineyards and what that award means to you and your entire team.
Sure, and we're not. This is over time.
Sure.
You know, you don't just jump into the swimming pool and all of a sudden you're sustainable. It's doing little changes every year, and it's pretty simple. You wake up in the morning and go, what's right? Do the right thing.
Yeah.
And it is. So we've starting in the vineyard. I mean, you farm a little different. We try to just keep the resources to a minimum. We irrigate vineyards, but we don't over irrigate. The consumer is going to be the ultimate test.
Sure.
So we try to want healthy vines. We manage the vines that way. 3 years ago, we started buying green energy only. So it was all natural energy. Now we're completely solar. So we've done that. We've removed Roundup, which is an herbicide from the vineyard that's got some negative issues with it. So we've just removed it from our vineyard for our vineyard teams. It's about people too. I mean, there's resources, and people are a big resource. I mean, as you know, running a business, they're your best resource.
Absolutely.
So it's a little bit every day, using a little less than we used yesterday. And then over a year, you actually used a lot less
Yeah.
of whatever that resource is, and being smart about things.
And healthy vines make
Oh,
healthy grapes.
it makes it so, when I first started in '89, we had a weird rainstorm and harvest, and we were all California sprawl, which was the vines just kind of fall over, because we were copying things from other areas, and that's what they were doing in the Central Valley and protecting from the sun. We didn't need that much protection. So we got this rain, and the vines didn't do well. So we learned to go copy from the Kiwis from New Zealand and get these vertical trained. Well, that was great until we did get some heat. We didn't have enough coverage. So over time, now, I mean, Winston Hill Vineyard, our best, we kind of do a hybrid thing. On one side, it's vertical. On the other side, it's sprawl. So we're protecting it from the sun, opening it up so we're not getting high humidity in there and use less chemicals that way. So farming, and it's funny, we talk about farming. I mean, everybody who's driving a tractor, pretty much, not everybody, but a good chunk of the managers graduated from Davis with degrees,
Right.
And they love driving
Yeah.
tractors, and
Yeah,
things like
I
that.
love it.
Yes. So it's a pretty highly educated farming community.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
So if you had to, and I'm sure that you have people that you look up to, but if you had to say, pick three other wineries that you look up to and winemakers that are there, who would that be?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. We're all friendly rivals,
Sure.
so it depends which wine I'm drinking. When we go, holy cow, that's good.
Right.
And then we say, and I'm not too proud to say, wow, what are they doing?
Yeah,
You
sure,
know,
sure.
yeah, exactly.
Listen, we do the same thing with other
Yeah.
restaurants.
Yep.
We're like, oh my God, these guys are doing something
You know,
really
and
good.
a lot of mine are, I have heavy biases because I'm a happy alumni of something like Phelps. I look up
Sure.
to all the time. And what are they doing? You know, who makes a better wine than Insignia?
Yeah.
You know, it's like wow, and
Not
and we
many.
buy those wines and we taste them, and I'm not too proud to say, oh, like if they come in first and we came and said, God dang
Yeah,
it,
right,
you
sure,
know,
yeah,
dang it,
right.
okay, oh, we'll get them next time, you
Yeah,
know,
right.
or we did get them, you know, okay, for our little group, you know. Again, another one that's ran well, and a lot of it all comes down to the passion, I
Sure.
think.
Yeah.
Schramsberg.
Yeah.
Super happy. Spent time there. What they do is done right, and learned a lot of those foundations there.
Yeah. So you mentioned Andrei Chelichev, and I just so early on when we started SoNapa, there was a winemaker whose family had made it to New Smyrna Beach, which is where we opened our first restaurant, and it's Rick Sayre, and he was with
Rodney Strong.
Rodney Strong
Yeah.
for like since 1978. I mean, he's since retired. His brother was actually in the restaurant a couple days ago, but yeah. So Rick was there for a long time, and I loved those wines that he produced. And man, he said that Andrei Chelichev was like his mentor.
Yeah, no, that's great. So Andre, I know he helped start Jordan. Rodney Strong
Yep,
was out
yep,
there
yep.
too. So, yeah, great stories. And yeah, Rick's a classic.
Yeah.
California, Napa, or Sonoma guy.
Yeah.
Sorry, Rick. I said
Yeah,
Napa, but yeah, he's great. All those guys, and you think when you're starting out, you're young, you're like, all these old guys, I'm never going to get a good job. You know, they've got to keep them forever.
Right.
And then all of a sudden now, young people are coming up to me going, when are you going to get out of here? You're going to keep that job forever, aren't you? Yeah.
It's fun you talk about that, and I kind of go back to sports though, and you know they talk about the coaching trees,
Yeah,
like from
yep,
the Parcells to
yeah.
the Jimmy Johnsons of the world.
Sure.
Are there any? And you know, mentoring young leaders for us is important. Are there any, Todd coaching tree guys that have gone on under your mentorship? Maybe some wineries that we should be on the lookout for because one of your guys is there or one of your girls is there.
Yeah, no, we're all kind of friendly rivals, and I don't have anybody most recently that is running. I mean, our last assistant is now running a big project called the Federalist.
Okay.
Doing that project in
familiar with them,
California.
yeah.
Yes. Some people have. I hope it wasn't my fault that took on other winemaking jobs and then said maybe winemaking is not my gig, and now they're running businesses.
Okay.
Sure.
You know, so
yeah.
stuff like that. So hopefully they're learning a balanced, or have started their own little brands.
Yeah.
You know, so it's great. But one of the fun things Napa does is, like I said, we're friendly rivals. I belong to a tasting group that we meet once a month for dinner, and the host has to put on dinner and the theme. And blind taste, and we have
That's so awesome.
And it's a handful of wineries that we all compete with that are all doing pretty dang well in the Napa Valley.
Yeah.
So the communication and the information transfers pretty well.
That's awesome.
Throughout. Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, and sustainability. I just mentioned a couple.
Yeah.
I mean, we had Bruce Cakebread on here.
Yeah.
And he was actually here. We did a wine dinner here. And man, he was so cool about their initiatives with sustainability and
Don't get him on composting.
oh no, he loves
20 minutes on
composting.
That's great.
Which I love.
He probably forgot more than I know, but
Right.
what I would love to your listeners to know of composting is that grapes, skins, stems, seeds, all that, after we're done with it, extracting what we need out of it, it's a pile of stuff. It all goes back in the
vineyard.
It all goes composted. It all goes back. The vines are pruned. The cuttings go back into the vineyard. Everything, we're just returning everything back.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's part of that sustainability.
Yes, and that's
Yeah.
part. Like, there's so many things we do, and you don't even think it's sustainable, but it is.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I think the other winery that's noted for being sustainable and biodynamic, I think, is Frog's Leap. And I spent time out
Sure.
at Frog's
Yep.
Leap. John Williams
John's
and his
a great
son.
guy. Yep.
I think Rory.
Rory,
Yeah.
it is, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, and so Frog's Leap is 2 doors down from our Benjamin Ranch.
Oh,
So
okay.
if you've been there, you know
Sure.
our ranch.
Yep.
So
Awesome.
and we don't even have to go on the road. All the dirt avenues just go
Right.
to everybody's vineyard. And another thing about being a good neighbor, we always say, pests don't look at the fence.
No, that's so true.
Yeah, so
Right.
if you're not a good neighbor, you're gonna put your neighbor at risk.
Yeah.
So everybody is concerned what the neighbors are doing. And if you're not a good farmer, your neighbor has to work harder.
Right.
Because pests travel across property lines.
It's kind of like sitting at a blackjack table. Like if the guy next to you
I don't know about that.
keeps
I don't
hitting
know that
on
analogy.
16, you're ruining my game, bro.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Yep.
Stop it. What are you doing? You got to go to the next. But
That's
you can't stand up and go to the $5
Yeah,
table.
yeah.
You're right there.
Yeah, we're in Rutherford. It's a little
right.
more than $5.
That's it.
So yes.
Yeah.
So snapshot, 5 years, Frank Family Vineyards. What do we have to look forward to? What's your next goal or aspiration, and what are we going to see?
Great. So my goal is just keep getting better at what we do. I mean, there's some ideas to add another variety. That's not on top of my
Right.
list. My fine tune this. We make a good Chardonnay. Let's keep making better and better.
Actually,
every year.
that's better than a good. That's a
Yeah.
a really
Well,
that's
listen,
a
if
great
it ain't
Chardonnay.
broke,
Yeah.
don't break.
Yeah, and it's
right?
Cabernet. So let's
Yeah.
keep growing. Let's keep getting the name out there. Do more
Sure.
work like this to get the name out
Yep.
there. Better vineyard sourcing. I mean, I'm only as good as the grapes.
Sure.
So, I mean, everybody's heard, you can't make great wine out of bad grapes, but you can make a bad wine out of good grapes. You know,
can.
so let's get better farming. Let's get better grapes into the product. That's my goal, and grow a little bit. We have some good growth intentions, but let's focus our growth.
Yeah.
And that's a key. I mean, it's again using your business and our business very similar. Do you want to focus on the fresh menu, or do you want a little bit of everything for everybody? Right. Well, those restaurants exist. Maybe that's not for you.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, listen, let's wrap this up. Our slogan is Taste, Toast Together, and it's because when we look out into the restaurant, we see our guests tasting wine, toasting, and they usually do it together. So we're going to end on Taste, Toast Together, guys, and we'll be off to lunch. So thank you, Todd.
Cheers.
Frank Family Wines, awesome.
Cheers. Thank you.
Try them.
Boom. Thank you for listening to the podcast. So member Monday, come in Monday and try a new wedge salad. Let us know what you think. Should it go on the menu? Also, code word for listening to the podcast, Todd. Get 50% off for Frank Family Chardonnay by the glass or by the bottle.